A lot of fields around central Nebraska have been infested by weeds, especially Palmer amaranth. And some soybean growers are concerned just about putting the combine in the field with those weeds. Here's more from Nebraska Extension.
That 99% of those seeds, as they're going through the combine, are still viable, meaning that they can germinate next season. So we need to be thinking about that, especially if, right now, Steve, if you're looking at your field and you mostly have Palmer in your end rows and not so much throughout the field, some things that we recommended to farmers last year were considering just shredding down the end rows, even disking them down, just to maybe cut down on the seed production, not letting that go through the combine and spreading it throughout the field. And then after that, we recommended even putting in some kind of a cover like bin run weed or something. We had several farmers that tried that last year, and they felt like it really knocked down their Palmer population this year. Obviously, there was still more in the field, but they felt it knocked it down compared to in the past.
Otherwise, is there a danger that as you're going through the field, and if it is so prolific, those seeds that it's able to produce, that you could be spreading it throughout the field, or could you even take it to another field if you're moving that combine around?
Yes, that is a concern, and that is something that research down in the southern states found, is that seed does stay in the combine. It can be spread throughout the field. It can be spread from field to field. I've had a number of conversations even with custom harvesters who were saying that they just plan on, even though it's going to take time, they're planning on just blowing out combines in between fields just to make sure that they're not spreading seed from field to field, which that's a good thing that they're doing too.
I know there's maybe people wanting to dry it down or different things. Are there different considerations that way in terms of other concerns you might be running into because of this thing being so prevalent?
Yeah, so there are concerns with guys being able to even cut through the Palmer in some of their fields. So we, at Husker Harvest Days, we were getting quite a few questions on soybean desiccants, basically allowing those soybean plants not only to dry the soybean plants out, but also dry some of the weeds out. Not sure how effective it'll be for the Palmer, especially with as late as they need to be applied. They need to be applied at 65% of pods turning brown. Those beans are going to mature really rapidly, and so that's something to just be watching regarding the moisture and so forth on the beans. I don't know how quickly the Palmer plants are going to dry down in those situations, but it is an option for farmers to consider. So a thought is, from observation, anytime we had more cover on the ground, anytime people had a cover crop of either wheat or rye this past year, or had wheat stubble that they planted into, it seemed like while there was still Palmer in those fields, there tended to be a little bit less Palmer in those fields.
And with harvest underway, President Trump has declared Farm Safety and Health Week. The president saying in part of his statement, quote, "American farmers, ranchers, and foresters uphold values at the heart of the American character, and as such, it is our duty to protect and promote their safety and health." The president continues to urge Americans to honor our agricultural heritage and express appreciation and gratitude to farmers, ranchers, and foresters for their important contributions and tireless service to our nation. Big improvements are coming to Husker Harvest Days as the city of Grand Island approves $2 million towards that work.
And the nice part about this whole setup,
billed as the World's Fair of Irrigated Agriculture, Husker Harvest Days has earned a reputation that attracts the major players in agribusiness.
Through the 90s and the early 2000s, Husker Harvest Days was the standard by which farm shows were held to in terms of the quality of the roads and the infrastructure, the electrical distribution and everything else. And a lot of other shows have kind of taken a step ahead.
To catch up, the company that runs the show plans to spend $7 million.
A lot more electrical distribution, better internet, things like that these exhibitors just really demand. In order to put on a good exhibit and a good display, they need to be able to drive up next to it in all-weather roads and have a drainage plan for it with hard surface roads.
And the city may contribute $2 million from the food and drink tax, something voters were told when that was on the ballot.
It certainly was, that this is one of the projects that might utilize those funds.
Studies have shown the three-day event has a $7 million impact.
And we've seen it in the last 2 weeks. The impact that Husker Harvest Days has on the food and beverage industry in Grand Island is huge. So it's reinvesting in supporting that impact.
Nabby says the city would likely put a lien on the property, ensuring they hold the show for the next 20 years in exchange for the $2 million. Other partners, including the show itself, would come up with another $5 million.
If we get the partnerships, have a foundation and have an infrastructure set up that'll take us for the next 40 years.
And a quick update, since we first reported that story, it has now cleared the first hurdle at Grand Island City Hall and continues to move forward. Well, still to come, divots in the pivots.